Denial. Denial is not simply lying to others. It is a sophisticated fortress the brain constructs to protect itself from a reality that would otherwise shatter the human mind. It is the absolute refusal to let a specific truth enter the conscious operating system because the cost of admission is too high. The most haunting example is found in deep grief, often called the phantom limb of the soul. A mother receives a telegram that her son has been blown apart in a war. She reads the words, she sees the coffin, yet she continues to set a plate for him at dinner every single night for 10 years. She isn't crazy. Her brain has severed the connection to that specific piece of reality because accepting it would cause a total psychological collapse. Denial creates a temporary, safe universe where the trauma never happened. But the debt accumulates with interest. The longer you refuse to look at the monster in the room, the bigger it grows in the dark until the wall finally breaks and 10 years of pain hits you in a single afternoon. Projection. Projection is the act of vomiting your own shadow onto someone else. It is a defense mechanism that activates when you possess a trait, a desire, or a sin that you cannot admit to yourself because it would destroy your ego. So your brain forcefully attributes it to the person standing in front of you. The classic narrative is the adulterous husband. He is cheating, and the guilt is rotting him from the inside. But instead of confessing, he becomes obsessively, violently jealous. He accuses his innocent wife of checking her phone, of looking at other men, of hiding secrets. He isn't analyzing her behavior. He is staring into a mirror and screaming at his own reflection. It is a survival tactic that converts internal shame into self-righteous anger. It feels much better to be the victim of a cheater than to be the villain who destroys a family. So the brain rewrites the script to make you the hero of the tragedy. Rationalization. Rationalization is the brain's internal defense attorney. It is the art of inventing a logical, moral reason for an emotional crime. When you do something you know is wrong, your brain immediately scrambles to write a legal brief to keep your self-esteem intact. Consider the corporate executive who signs off on dumping toxic waste into a drinking water supply. He doesn't go home and tell himself he is a villain. He tells himself he is a pragmatist protecting shareholder value. He tells himself that if he didn't do it, the company would go under and thousands of families would lose their jobs. He reframes a monstrous act as a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. The action remains the same, but the narrative changes completely. Rationalization allows good people to commit atrocities and still sleep soundly at night because they have convinced themselves that the evil choice was actually the only logical option available. Repression. Repression is the brain's emergency delete button. Unlike suppression, where you choose to ignore a thought, repression happens without your permission. The memory is so traumatic, so radioactive that the mind buries it in the deepest basement of the subconscious and welds the door shut. This is common in soldiers who survive heavy combat or children who survive abuse. A man might watch his best friend die in a horrific way, but when he tries to recall the event years later, he finds only a black hole. He isn't faking the amnesia. His brain has decided that accessing that file would destroy the host system, so it blocked the path. The memory is still there, rotting in the background and influencing his nightmares, his temper, and his heart rate, but the conscious mind is barred from ever touching it again. It is a ghost haunting a house that refuses to believe in ghosts. Dissociation. Dissociation is the ejection seat. When physical or emotional pain becomes too great for the nervous system to handle, the mind detaches from the body. It is a biological circuit breaker. Trauma victims often describe the sensation of floating up to the ceiling and watching the event happen to someone else below. You feel numb, robotic, and dreamlike. The brain turns a first-person horror movie into a third-person documentary to dampen the impact. It is the ultimate survival tool for the moment of impact, but the switch can get stuck. If you dissociate too often, you spend the rest of your life feeling like a pilot who ejected from the plane but never landed. You walk through life feeling like a ghost haunting your own machinery, watching your life through a pane of glass but never actually feeling the wind on your face. Intellectualization. Intellectualization is the removal of feeling through the excessive use of logic. It is the preferred defense mechanism of highly intelligent people who are terrified of their own emotions. Imagine a doctor diagnosing himself with a terminal illness. Instead of crying, panicking, or grieving his future, he immediately dives into the medical literature. He reads research papers on cellular decay. He talks about survival rates, chemical treatments, and probability curves as if he were solving a math problem on a whiteboard. He treats his own death as an academic puzzle. By focusing entirely on the cold, hard data, he builds a shield against the terror of dying. He stays locked in his head so he never has to visit his heart because he knows he wouldn't survive what he finds there. He performs an autopsy on his own life while he is still alive to avoid feeling the pain of losing it. Compartmentalization. Compartmentalization is the ability to live two contradictory lives at the same time without them ever touching. It is the secret weapon of spies, sociopaths, and serial killers. The most terrifying example is Richard Kuklinski, the hitman known as the Iceman. He was a loving father who cooked barbecues for his neighbors, went to church every Sunday, and took his daughters to Disney World. He was also a man who murdered over 100 people, freezing their bodies in industrial freezers to mask the time of death. He wasn't faking the love for his family. He had simply built a steel wall in his mind. In one room, he was a gentle dad. In the other room, he was a cold-blooded monster. He never let the blood from one side seep under the door to the other. It allows a human being to be a demon from 9 to 5 and a saint from 5 to 9. Minimization. Minimization is the shrinking of reality to make it manageable. It is the refusal to give weight to a tragedy. An alcoholic drinks a liter of vodka a day, loses his job, and crashes his car into a tree. But when confronted, he tells his family he just likes to blow off steam and that everyone is overreacting. He acknowledges the event, he admits he drinks, but he denies the impact. By stripping the consequences of their gravity, he protects his ego from the crushing realization that he has destroyed his own life. It is the defense mechanism of the captain on a sinking ship, standing on the deck with water up to his ankles, convincing himself and the crew that it is just a splash from a wave. It works perfectly right up until the moment the water goes over your head. Avoidance. Avoidance is the refusal to enter the arena. It is a fear response that masquerades as laziness. You have a stack of unpaid bills on the counter, you know they are there, you know the debt collectors are calling, but instead of opening them, you play video games for 8 hours straight. You aren't being lazy. You are being ruled by terror. Your brain has associated that mail with physical pain, so it steers you away from it the same way it steers you away from a hot stove. Avoidance buys you temporary relief. It feels good in the moment to ignore the threat, but it turns a solvable problem into a catastrophe. You trade a moment of anxiety today for a lifetime of ruin tomorrow. Emotional numbing. Emotional numbing, or affect isolation, is the cauterization of the soul. It happens when a person has been hurt so many times that they simply stop processing the signal. It is common in first responders, surgeons, and soldiers. To cut into a human body or pull a dead child from a wreck requires you to shut off your empathy. If you felt the full horror of what you were seeing, you would collapse and be useless. So the brain turns the volume down to zero. You function perfectly. You do your job, but you feel nothing. The danger is that you cannot selectively numb pain. When you kill the sadness, you kill the joy too. You are left existing in a gray, flat static where nothing hurts but nothing matters. You become a biological machine that is technically alive, but spiritually dead. Dehumanization. Dehumanization is the psychological removal of someone's membership in the human race. It is the prerequisite for genocide. It is extremely difficult for a normal human to kill another human because we are wired for empathy. So before a war, the propaganda machine works to reclassify the enemy. They aren't people like you with mothers and children. They are rats, cockroaches, or monsters. By stripping them of human status, the brain finds a loophole in its moral code. You aren't murdering a person, you are exterminating a pest. This defense mechanism protects the killer from the guilt of their own actions by convincing them that the victim didn't count in the first place. It allows a man to commit unspeakable evil while believing he is doing the world a favor by cleaning it. Moral licensing. Moral licensing is the trap of being good enough. It happens when doing something virtuous makes you feel entitled to do something bad. You go to the gym and eat a salad, so you feel justified in smoking a cigarette and eating a greasy pizza later. Your brain keeps a balance sheet. Because you deposited good points earlier, you feel allowed to make a bad withdrawal. This explains why some public philanthropists are private monsters. They believe their charity work buys them a pass to be cruel to their employees or their families. They use their public goodness as a shield to protect them from their private corruption. They treat kindness not as a lifestyle, but as a currency they can use to purchase the right to be a jerk. Splitting. Splitting is the inability to see gray areas. It is viewing people as either absolute angels or total demons. This defense mechanism is often found in children who grow up in abusive homes. A child cannot reconcile that the mother who hugs them is the same person who hits them. It is too confusing. So the brain splits the world. When you are good, you are perfect and can do no wrong. But the moment you make a mistake, you are evil and worthless. There is no middle ground. It protects the person from the confusion of complex relationships, but it ensures they will never have a stable one because nobody can remain an angel forever. The moment the pedestal cracks, the brain destroys the entire statue. Grandiosity. Grandiosity is the armor of the insecure. It is the creation of a superior, godlike self image to hide a deep well of worthlessness. The cult leader who claims he can talk to aliens or save the world isn't usually confident. He is terrified. He feels so small and vulnerable that he has to invent a fiction where he is the most important person in the universe just to survive the day. He demands worship not because he believes he is a god, but because without the constant reflection of his own greatness, he would collapse into self hatred. He is a vampire of adoration, needing a constant supply of praise just to keep his own demons at bay. Learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is the total surrender of the will. It was discovered in a cruel experiment where dogs were shocked and given no way to escape. Eventually, the researchers opened the door. The dogs could have easily walked out and stopped the pain. But they didn't move. They just laid down and whined. They had learned that their actions didn't matter, so they stopped trying. This happens to humans in abusive relationships or totalitarian states. The brain decides that trying and failing hurts more than just giving up. So it creates a mental prison where the door is unlocked, but the prisoner refuses to leave because he has fallen in love with the certainty of his own cage.